All right. The next question we are dealing with is called Folion. Folion. Again, you check the WhatsApp group, you'll see it there. Folion. Can somebody read for us, please? Motolani, can you read for us? All people are not back.
We are here, sir.
So can somebody read for us and let's stop wasting time.
Sir, please, which question?
Folion.
Let me attempt, sir. Folion Co. manufactures heavy agricultural equipment and machinery, which can be used in difficult farming conditions. Folion Co.'s chief executive has been investigating a significant opportunity in the country of Naswa, where Folion Co. has not previously sold any products. The government of Naswa has been undertaking a major land reclaiming program, and Folion Co.'s equipment is particularly suitable for use on the reclaimed land. Because of the costs and other problems involved in transporting its products, Folion Co.'s chief executive proposes that Folion Co. should establish a plant for manufacturing machinery in Naswa. He knows that the Naswan government is keen to encourage the development of sustainable businesses within the country. Initial suggest that proposed investment in Naswa will have a negative net present value of $1.01 million. However, Folion Co.'s chief executive believes that there may be opportunities for greater cash flows in the future if the Naswan government expands its land reclamation program. The government at the present is struggling to fund expansion of the program out of its own resources and is looking for other funding. If the Naswan government obtains this funding, the chief executive has forecast that the increased demand for Folion Co.'s products will justify $15 million additional expenditure at the site of the factory in 3 years' time. The expected net present value for this expansion is currently estimated to be $0. It can be assumed that all costs and revenues include inflation. The relevant cost of capital is 12% and the risk-free rate is 4%. The chief executive has estimated the likely volatility of cash flows at a standard deviation of 30%. One of Folion Co.'s non-executive directors has read about possible changes in interest rates and wonders how these might affect the investment appraisal. Required. A. Assess showing all relevant calculations whether Folion Co. should proceed with the significant opportunity. Discuss the assumptions made and other factors which will affect the decision of whether to establish a plant in Naswa. The Black-Scholes pricing model may be used where appropriate. B. Explain what is meant by an options row and discuss the impact of changes in interest rates on the appraisal of the investment. C. Discuss the possibility of Naswan government obtaining funding for further land reclamation from the World Bank, referring specifically to the International Development Agency. 25 marks.
All right, thank you, Mohammed. Now, if we take another look at that requirement again, it says, assess showing all relevant calculations for 16 marks, whether Folion Co. should proceed with the significant opportunity. This your assessment should also include a discussion of assumptions that you have made and other factors which will affect the decision whether to establish a plant in Naswan. The Black-Scholes model may be used where appropriate. You don't have any choice anyway. You have to use Black-Scholes model. So I don't know what that may be used is indicating. All right. Can somebody tell us? Because I just imagine if you got into the exam, this is a 25 marks question, right? You get into the exam hall and you see this. How will you solve question 1? What's the big picture? What are we trying to get? There's no point in me just rushing into it and start explaining and I explain and you say you get everything, but thinking independently is what you will do in the exam hall. So have some thoughts around it and let me know how you will resolve this.
Hello, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me try. Okay. And we can see that in the second paragraph, initial calculation suggests that the proposed investment would have a negative NPV. Based on that, it would appear as though the investment should be ignored since it is not worthwhile. However, the Folion Co's chief executive believes that there may be opportunities for greater cash flows in the future if the national government expands its land reclamation program. So if if we look at it, if we look at that as an option to expand in a way which they call option, we could use the Black-Scholes pricing model to value that option and see if undertaking the project would be worthwhile or not.
Emmanuel. Fantastic. Good. So, Emmanuel, CM, I hear you that NPV of the project is negative, right?
Okay.
I hear you that there will be additional investment or there's an option to expand, and that option to expand is a call option and we need to value it and consider it. But are you sure that is all in determining whether we should go for this project or not go for it? I'm not talking about other consideration, qualitative consideration. I'm saying in our computation, so you said 1, we get the negative NPV which they're giving to us. 2, we get the value of the call option, which is the option to expand. Is there another thing that you have not said?
See. let me take a look again.
Okay, don't go, because that well, let me take a look again. Now you disappear. Emmanuel, follow me as we talk. Are you with me?
Yes, I am.
Good. Now, you bought a private jet or a commercial jet so that you can be carrying people from one jurisdiction to the other. No, you've not. You want to buy, sorry. Haven't done the NPV analysis. You concluded that the NPV will be negative for that one jet that you want to buy, commercial jet, okay? You now got hold of information that, they are developing Kafansha. And if they develop Kafansha and put airports and all those facilities there, you can broaden your destination. And as a result of broadening your destination, you may be able to make money or not make money or whatever it is, but that option to broaden your destination exists. So you now looked at it that may mean that you may have to buy maybe another jet, even if it's fairly used one, so that you have 2 options and you can sustain that expansion. So obviously, your first evaluation was based on 1 jet, right? You had a negative NPV on that. Now you have an option to expand because of the development happening in Kafansha, right? Now, you said we need to value that option to expand. I agree with you. But remember that I said that that expansion comes with cash flows of its own. Do you agree with me? Any expansion you do comes with its own cash flows. Do you agree with me?
Yes, I do.
Meaning it will have its own inflow and outflow, right?
Yes.
Okay. That means it should have its own something. What is that thing?
Its own present value.
Fantastic. Its own NPV. It should have its own NPV. So that means in this question, as will be the case in any expansion question, there will be 2 NPVs. The NPV of the main project, the NPV of the expansion project, then the value of the option to expand. So that NPV of the expansion project is what I was expecting to hear. Okay. Now, Emmanuel, what did they now tell us in the question about that NPV of the expansion project?
The estimated net present value for this expansion is currently estimated to be $0.
Fantastic. Fantastically fantastic. You see, anybody who does not see that or ignores that statement is fundamentally missing a fundamental point in the question. So, Emmanuel, we have agreed that there are three things. One, NPV of the main project. Unfortunately, it is negative. Normally, we would have walked away. But now we've realized that we have an option to expand. It's one thing to expand, is another thing not to expand. So the fact that you have a right to expand, which you may exercise or not exercise, depending on whether it's favorable or not, is why we value a call option. Okay, so the right is what that call option is valuing. But the moment you say you want to expand, expansion too will have its own cash flows. So I've seen another past question where they told candidates the cash flows related to the expansion, and that one had a positive NPV. Candidates had to ensure that they bring that in. In this question, they made it more complicated by saying it would be 0. Even though it looks easier. So that is fine. We have reached that agreement. Three things. NPV of the main project or the current project. NPV of the expansion if it takes place. And then value of the right to expand. An option to expand. So three things. So that's good. Now, you have told me that the NPV of the project is negative 1 million, 0.01 million, 1.01 million, sorry. You have told me NPV of the option to expand is 0. And you have told me we need to value a call option. So let's value the call option. In order to value a call option, what do you need? Can somebody tell me?
Risk-free rates, volatility. There are 5 variables that we need.
Okay.
The risk-free rate, the volatility,
Options.
the price of the asset, the exercise price, the time to maturity.
Fantastic. Now, you have told me 5 things that we need, and I'm sure you know that those 5 things can be divided into 2. The ones that give you the intrinsic value, which is the present value of the underlying cash flows, or PA as we call it, and the exercise price, which is the initial outlay, PE as we call it. Then the other category is what we call time value, right? Which is the risk-free rates, time to maturity, and volatility of the cash flows. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if any, please determine your 5 parameters. 5 parameters. Because of course, if you don't know the 5 parameters or any of the 5 parameters is wrong, then the call option value will be wrong, right? So what are your 5? What is PA in this question? What is PE in this question? What is R, T, and S? Luckily, complex calculation is not required. So everybody should have something. And I will be calling on a sample of people. So please have something.
My PE will be 15 million.
Put it down in your notes. When I'm ready, I'll let you know. Some people are still thinking. All right. Bridget, do you want to give us your parameters?
Thanks, Shay. I have rate as 4%, time, I have the time values as time 3 years, volatility as 30%, and the rate at 4%. And the intrinsic portion, exercise price as 15 million, and the underlying as the present value of 15 million, which is 10.68.
Bridget, come back, come back. Don't run away yet. I'm interested in one. That's your PA, which is the, wait. For option to expand, as you guys have said, we need 5 parameters. PE, which is exercise price, is the additional investment. Is that not true? And that is given to us on a platter of good, $15 million. PA is the present value of the future cash flows that additional investment will generate. Is that not true? Okay. Yes. So how did you now get it?
The question says we will spend 15 million in 3 years' time. So I discounted it to get the current present value plus the 0.
Okay. Wait, the question said we will spend 15 million in 3 years' time. So that's why you discounted the 15 million to now.
Yes.
And still assume that 15 million is also your PE. I think the way you are explaining it is what I have a problem with. Temitope, what are your own parameters? Maybe Bridget is even wrong. Temitope, are you there? We're waiting.
Sorry, Sheikh, before Temitope comes up. So the net present value will be the expected net present value of the expansion at 0 plus the present value of the 50 million. I guess because it's 0, that's why it's coming up. So please correct me if my thinking is wrong.
Okay. Now I get where you are coming from. I get what you are saying, and you are correct. Okay. So if now everybody, I want you to take note, and we are going to go to the solution. Okay. There's still another question we need to solve. So I don't intend to start typing this one out. It's going to take time. And you can already envisage that we will not finish by 6 o'clock. Now, let me explain before I show the solution. Okay?
Hello, Mr. Shea. I was about to talk when she comes in.
Okay. Oh yeah, talk.
Okay, for my P, which is 50 million, the R 4%, the T 3 years, the volatility I got 5.5%, which is square root of 30%. I don't know if I'm right. For the PA, I did a present value of the 15 million, which would be paid in 3 years' time. I got 14.56 million.
Okay, why did you do present value of 15 million?
To get the underlying price, since PA is underlying price. I'm not sure if I'm right though.
Okay. I guess yeah, all right, thanks. So number one, you should not do square root. You are already given standard deviation. You are not given variance. So there's no need doing the square root of 30%. Okay, annual standard deviation is what we need, and that's what has been given to us. Okay. Now, in terms of the RTSPE, I think that is pretty much clear to everyone. If there's anyone here who is missing any of those other 4 parameters, then you've really not started reading very well, except you made a mistake. Now, PA, is present value. When we say present value, we are saying present value as at now. You know that additional investment will happen in 3 years' time. But so when we say present value, we are talking about now. So PA is the PV of the future cash flows that additional investment will generate. Okay? So since the question says initial outlay is 15 million and MPV is 0, that means the present value of the cash flows in 3 years' time and the initial outlay in that 3 years' time are the same. Okay? In fact, I need an empty sheet. Just hold on. Let me show you something. All right. So, sorry, just one moment. Okay. See, year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3. There's something I want to explain beyond what you are probably thinking of. Okay. Some of you may already know this already. So, but just listen. There's another thing I want to explain. Now, what's the name now? MPV of projects. Okay. They said this one is negative 1.01 million. Can say I'm putting it under year 0. MPV of additional investment. They said that would be 0. For this thing to be 0, that means the present value of outlay and present value of inflow are the same. Okay? Present value of outlay and present value of inflow are the same. Now, how much is the outlay? Remember that the outlay is 15 million. Let's say negative, right? How much is the inflow? We are not given. Okay? But since MPV is 0, that inflow too should be what? 15. But these are in year 3 terms. So for the value of call, value of option to expand, which is a call, we need PE. That PE, we don't normally discount it because the call option formula already discounts PE. Okay? So what will your PE be? Exactly the 15 million. But then we now need PA, and the PA is PV of future cash flows. We don't know what the future cash flows will be because they didn't tell us. But we know that the present value of those future cash flows equal the present value of the outlay. So that is why we can do 15 discounted for 3 years. Now remember that you have to discount using the cost of capital, not risk-free rates. Okay, so that is the basis for getting the PA. Then R, C, and S follows. Now, this is the question, this question. There have been another question where they gave students the cash flows of the project, this first one. They didn't tell them the MPV. Okay, they gave them the initial outlay, say for example, negative 200. Initial outlay. Then they gave inflow 300, 100, 400, blah, blah, blah. Let's even say there's year 4, and year 5. 50, 70. Okay. Then they now said, in this project, the company has an option to expand at the end in 3 years' time. They now give them the cash flows for that expansion as well. Negative 100 as the expansion. And then the inflow 60, 65. They now say, what is the total value of the what? Project. So in a question like this, you must be careful to remember that the total value of the project will be 1, your first MPV of the project, which will focus on what? This first one, these cash flows, discounted using the cost of capital. So I hope you are seeing what I'm highlighting. So if I paint it red, then red here as well. Okay. Then what's the name? Then MPV of expansion, right? Then what do you do again? So let's paint that green. These cash flows only green. But obviously you now have to bring it from their respective years to which year? Year 0. Okay. Then call option, which is value of option to expand. PA will be what? MPV, present value of 60 and 65. Don't make the mistake to go and include 50 and 70. While E will be 100. So you are only considering the additional cash flows for that call option. And that 60 and 65, you will bring it to year 0. Not that you will discount it to year 3. You bring it to year 0 because it's present value as a now. All right. If that is clear, if there's no question, then let's solve it. Any question?
Shay,
Yes.
the only question I have is the NPV, the expected net present value of this expansion is currently estimated to be 0. This NPV, is this 0 figure at year 3 when the expansion will commence? That's how I interpret it. I want to be
No, wait, what did you
correct.
say again? That MPV, which MPV is that one?
That the last of the additional expansion project.
Uh-huh.
That's zero. That's zero.
Which zero? There's no zero.
That gives
Oh, are
us
you
zero.
talking about the
That
question?
gives us zero. The question, sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, the question. Okay. Yes. What did you say happened to the zero?
That's zero. Is it the MPV at year 3?
No, it's the MPV as at now. Look at the question. It said the expected MPV of this expansion is currently estimated to be 0. Is that fine?
Okay, thank you.
All right, so here you go. Please, I've labeled each box, okay? So box 1, project assessments, MPV based on initial investment, negative 1,010,000. MPV based on additional investment, 0. Value of call option determined below. Okay. Viability of the project, bring everything together. So obviously, we then need to determine the value of the option, right? PA equals PV of future cash flows arising from the additional investments. And that is the present value of 15,000 discounted for 3 years. If the MPV of the expansion was positive, then what you will need to do is to add that MPV to the cost, because MPV plus cost, MPV plus outlay should give you the PV of cash flows. MPV plus outlay should give you what? PV of inflows. For the MPV here, it was 0. PE 15, 4, 3, 30. Now, you are in the exam hall, you need to get your D1. My advice remains the same. Follow the formula sheet given to you. Get the natural logarithm of PA over PE. Just watch my cursor, okay? First, and that is what you guys can see here as 0.339 negative. Get R plus 0.5 S squared multiplied by T separately. Okay? Put it down, 0.255. It's nice to do it this way so that the examiner can track, and if there's any mistake anywhere, they can see it rather than just putting the lump sum value there. Get the denominator, 0.5196, put it there. Okay? And that's what we have there. D2, use the formula again and do the two things. D1, which is your answer from above, minus S root T. Show the examiner what you got for S root T. Once you have your D1 and D2, check them on the table. My advice is, what's the name? Move them to 2 decimal points. So this one can be 0.16, for example, while this one is 0.68. Okay. Now, to check them on the table, what do? Usually the table contains an instruction at the end. I hope they still put that instruction there. .16 is D1. So you check 0.1, shaded yellow here, under 0.06. Or 0.1 plus 0.06 give you 0.16. And that gives you 0.0635. The instruction underneath this table typically says if D1 is less than 0, that is negative, subtract the number from above from 0.5. So what did we do? Since 0.16 gives us 0.0636, we come to our ND1 table and get 0.5 minus that number. You see it? Then we picked D2. Check the same thing again, 0.6 under 0.08. That gives us 0.2517. Since 0.68 is negative, we do 0.5 minus 0.2517. That gives us our ND2. Are you a student in this class? You've not solved on your own any question involving the use of black squares. I don't think you intend to write the exam on Monday. Call option value, of course, you use the formula as well as given.
Monday.
And that is herein stated in my formula. Now, what I want to draw your attention to in this formula is the P. What am I doing? Sorry, is this one up here? PE times ND2 times ERT, the exponentiation function of rate times time. Question I have for you is this. This is the reason why we don't discount PE. Because that ERT is a discount factor. It's a continuous discounting formula. Okay? So it's a discount factor, discounting your PE. Because call option value is as at now. Yeah? PA is as at now. So PE2 needs to be as at now. And that is why the ERT is discounting it. Okay? So that gives us 1356, which we brought up here to get the overall value of the project, 346,000. Then you provide comments. So according to our commentary, sorry, first, any question on the calculation? Any question? Any question? All right. Though the MPV of the initial investment is expected to be negative, while the MPV of the expansion effectively breaks even, when the value of the option to expand is considered, the overall project value is expected to be 346,000, which makes the project acceptable, although fully should consider the assumptions and other factors listed below. So what are the assumptions of what we have done? The examiner is asking. You should know the assumptions of a typical Black-Scholes option pricing model. And more importantly, you should be able to state those assumptions in the context of one of its application, which is using it to value real options. Number one, and I'll explain each one that you have here, so please pay attention. It is assumed that the risk-free rate and project volatility, which is R and S, is known and constant. These variables may, however, change over time, particularly for long-term projects like this project. Risk-free rate is not management that determines it. It is government that has influence on risk-free rates. Right? So the government may wake up tomorrow and say, we want to engage in quantitative easing. And with that, they decide to start buying bonds. Bond buying will result in rates going down. Another time, the government may wake up again and say, we need to mop up. We need to reduce inflation, or we need to improve, we need cash for investment, and they start issuing bonds. Issuing bonds, what happens to risk-free rates? Risk-free rates go up. So it's outside our control. Now, everybody listen to the word volatility. Volatility, and it is surprising that this thing, they asked it further in this question. Towards the end, you will see. Volatility is talking about the extent to which the cash flows of the project are variable. Question is, a project that you have not done, how do you want to estimate the variability of its cash flows? The way we estimate volatility in real life is we look at historical distribution of something, right? Historical distribution of something. So if you say volatility of Zenith Bank's share price, for example, you go to the Nigerian Stock Exchange and get the historical price, maybe over the last, 5,000 days, trading days, or whatever number of days you want to use. You get the mean, which is the average, and you get the extent to which each variable deviates from the mean. Of course, you use the standard deviation formula. So what am I trying to say? Typically, we get volatility by looking at what has happened. But now you want to estimate volatility for something that will happen. Okay, maybe we will even say that's not a problem if it is a financial instrument that is actively traded. We can commonsensically assume that historical volatility will be an estimation of future volatility, which, of course, commonsensically, you also know that that is a big assumption. But we are not dealing with a financial product instrument here. We are dealing with a tangible asset, an investment in a tangible asset. So this is not something that is actively traded in a market. So that is a potential issue. It's a potential issue. I'm saying this because they may ask you to state the limitations of what you have done in a Black-Scholes model. You have to be able to explain some of these things. It is also assumed that future volatility can be estimated from historical volatility. This may not be the case, particularly for new projects. I'm sure you get it now. It is also assumed that the project cash flows will follow a log normal distribution. However, projects may exhibit skewness and even net cash flows in some years. And even negative net cash flows in some years. Let me explain what log normal distribution means in the context of option price Black-Scholes. What Black-Scholes is saying is that, okay, wait, first of all, remember that traditionally Black-Scholes option pricing model is used for valuing options on actively traded stocks. European style options on actively traded stocks. Of course, you know that the minimum price of a stock is 0. A stock price can never be negative. The minimum is 0. So Black-Scholes assume that share prices, number 1, follows a normal distribution and it is non-negative. Non-negative, we understand for share price, it can't be negative. Normal distribution, very debatable. Share prices do not always follow a normal distribution. And that's why we said that can be an issue. But that's even for share price. This is a project. A project can have negative cash flow in a particular year. You can agree with me on that. So while share price may not fall below 0, a project in year 2, in year 3, in year 4, year 5, the outflow may be more than the inflow. That's one. Then the cash flows may not follow a normal distribution. You can Google the characteristics of normal distribution after the class. Okay. That is that one. I wanted to say something. Okay, now, I don't know whether some of you followed the news during the pandemic. There was an oil price. It is called, is it WPI? Yes, I think it is WPI. Is it WPI or WPT? Yes, it's WPI. Okay. Yes. West Texas Intermediate. Okay. Yes, WPI. WPI is a measure is crude oil price. Okay, it's a futures quotation in the futures market. During the lockdown, during the height of lockdown, that price hit negative. It was unheard of. It was something that has never happened in financial history. It hit what? Negative. The price of a commodity hit negative. You may be wondering, that's illogical.
I remember
yes.
that.
Yes, it's illogical. You may now be wondering what caused it. Go and investigate. Go and do research. Go and investigate. But what am I trying to tell you? What I'm trying to tell you is log normal distribution may not exist for certain types of commodity options in an extreme case. Because at that time, people were pricing storage costs. That if okay, anyway, let's not go into too much details. I'm already out of time. Number 4, it is assumed that the underlying item is traded in an active market and buyers and sellers have all the information about the item. That is okay if it is share options, but real options do not trade in any active market. This project is not trading in any active market. It is assumed that we are dealing with European style options, but most real options are American style, meaning that you may be able to exercise your option to expand anytime before year 3. And obviously, Black-Scholes pricing model cannot value American style options. Okay, we are done with the assumption. The question also asked us, what other factors do we need to consider? These assumptions of Black-Scholes is not exhaustive. There are other assumptions. You can read more about it, but at least you should know these ones. And I think I've taken my time to explain the limitation of each one as it applies to, what's the name? As it applies to real options. Okay. What are the other factors that you could have told the examiner as additional considerations? My people, can you please confirm that you are with me? I'm sure you would have noticed that I'm on autopilot. Are you with me, please? Confirm, just confirm,
Yes,
please.
yes,
We are here, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Other considerations would include option to delay may exist till funding has been obtained. So this project may also have an option to delay. Okay, so delaying that expansion beyond a period of time. Ability to obtain the funding is also a consideration. If not, expansion may be unrealistic. Remember, the question says, let me see where they said that. They said, the government of NASFAN has been undertaking a major land reclamation this, and Folion equipment is blah, blah, blah. Folion chief executive proposes that Folion Co. should establish a plant for manufacturing the machinery in NASFAN. He knows that the government is keen to encourage the development of sustainable businesses in the country. Okay. Then they said somewhere that if NASFAN government obtains this funding, the chief executive has forecast that the increased demand for Folion products could be so. Okay, so ability to obtain funding. If they don't get that funding, there will be no land reclamation. And if there's no expansion in that area, then our machinery will not be in high demand. Next, grants and assistance from government. Are we able to get tax holidays, import concession, or free trade import concessions with the NASFAN government? That's a major consideration. Okay, then other alternative use of funds that may generate a better ROI. Do we have other options that we could put our money into? Before now, people were focused on debt, equity, real estate, debt, equity, real estate, then crypto came in and it provided a very volatile high return option. that people moved money to. So alternatives are always out there in the market. A company may be able to justify that expanding into NASWAN may not be appropriate. Rule of law and effectiveness of the legal framework in NASWAN, very important. If the government should go and change, and the new government is an opposition party, and they want to renege or cancel the contracts that they have signed with Folion, you have to be able to ensure that you've got a legal framework that can protect the rights of the company. Forex risk, very important. When you are going international, you must consider Forex risk. And as you can see, the Forex market is highly volatile nowadays. And so, with consequent impact on international investments. Quality and availability of labor in NASWAN, very key consideration, particularly in the world that we live in now, with the era of great resignation and scarcity of labor. So if you want to expand, you have to be sure that you can get the talent you need in that country. Tax arrangement between NASWAN and Folion. Lack of double taxation treaty may not make the investment viable. Okay? Sensitivity analysis and simulation of assumptions and the impact on MPV. And then, do exit options exist? So you can see in the question, we were looking at option to expand. Okay, then we are also thinking, okay, can we delay this option to expand, or can we exit if we expand and things are not going the way we want? Do we have an option to exit? Okay, so those are consideration. 11 considerations provided there, although you don't need up to that to get the marks. B, any question? Explain what is meant by an options rule and discuss the impact of changes in interest rates on the appraisal of the investment. Ladies and gentlemen, listen and listen as you have been listening, if you have been listening. Okay? An option has what we call risk sensitivity factors. Risk sensitivity factors. Risk sensitivity factor. Each option that you hold, a call option, put option, you should be able to assess how the value of that option can change as a result of other factors. Okay? Those other factors are effectively the 5 parameters that we have been talking about. However, you will notice that out of those 5 parameters, one is static. Which one is static? Can you remind me? Which one is static?
PE.
Okay, PE is static. So that one is not the problem. The problem is that, mute your mic, mute your mic, mute your mic, mute your mic. Once you speak and you are done, mute your mic. So PE is static. But PA can change because PA is the value of the underlying asset or the underlying item of the option. R can change, as I've demonstrated to you guys. Volatility can change over time. And the biggest changer is time. Because if you say it's 3 years, which is 3 times 250 trading days, okay? The moment you enter Monday and Monday goes, 1 day has gone, your T is no longer 3 years. is now 2 point something years. The moment Tuesday goes, is now 2 point something lower years again. You see it? So all those things are changing. Wherever you are, say all those 4 parameters are changing. They will be changing. So as they change, the value of your option, the option that you hold, will also change. That is the problem. The value of the option that you hold will also change. So if the price of the underlying stock, for example, is changing, call option value will change. If risk-free rate changes, call option value will change. If interest rate changes, if volatility changes, if time to maturity changes, call option value will change. Now, one of the things option traders are interested in is they want to know how sensitive is my option value to changes in these variables. I hope somebody is paying attention. How sensitive are my option values, call option, put option values, to changes in these variables? Now, that thing that helps you to assess or measure the sensitivity of your option value to these variables are the things we call risk sensitivity factors. What did I call them again? Risk sensitivity factors. They help you to measure the extent to which your option value will change as a result of changes in those 4 variables. Now, you may then say, okay, that will mean that we only have 4 risk sensitivity factors. Actually, we have 5. Potentially, it could even be more than that. But for the sake of your syllabus, you only need to know 5. And they don't have anything to do with the PE. I've already told you PE, that one is exercise price, is constant, is agreed, right? Now, let's now go through them one by one because they usually put this thing in. Sometimes they will put 3 marks, sometimes they'll put 4 marks, sometimes they'll put 3 marks, 5. In this one now, they put 5 marks, okay? So the first one is what I will call option delta. What did I call the first one? Option delta. What did I call the first one? Option delta. What is happening here? Okay. Option delta. Option delta. The second one, I will call it option gamma. The third one, I will call it option theta. The fourth one, I will call it option vega. The last one, which happens to be the one they asked in this question, I will call it option rho. Rho. These are Greek words. In fact, some people call them the Greeks. Option Greeks. Okay? They are risk sensitive. It's just the way you have duration. Can somebody remind me? What does modified duration tell us? What does modified duration tell us?
The average time to recoup our investment.
What does modified duration tell us?
Sensitivity of change in price or
fantastic.
Changing.
Fantastic. Even though I did not fully hear you, I think you are on the right path. It tells us the percentage change in price or value of a bond for every 100 basis point change in yield. That's the same analogy as well of these risk sensitivity factors. If I bring that option from this formula sheet here, if I copy, let me see, and I can put it here so that as I'm okay. Now watch me, watch you. Yeah. C, call. It is influenced by PA that is here. So I have a question for you. Is there a direct relationship or indirect relationship between PA and C? Direct or indirect? Direct or inverse, rather? Ah, no answer. Okay, maybe I'm talking too much. Let me go straight to the point then. So,
Direct.
all right. Meaning the higher PA is, the higher the value of a call. The lower PA is, the lower the value of a call. Therefore, an options delta, this first one here, tells you the rates. Tells you the change, the sensitivity, the extent of change you will expect in the value of a call for every change in the underlying price, which is PA. That is what an option delta tells you. So it measures the sensitivity of an options value to changes in the underlying asset price. Now, actually, your PA is this, sorry, your delta is the same thing as ND1. What did I say your delta is? ND1. So for example, in this question now that we solved and we got ND1 of 0.43, what does that mean? 43%. That's the option delta. What does this 43% mean? It means for every change in PA, this guy, for every $1 change in PA, the value of, what's the name? The call option will change by 0.43. What am I trying to say? If PA should increase by 100%, value of call option will only increase by what? 43%. That's why it is a disaster. I was marking a script in the past and I saw ND1 negative. The moment I saw ND1 negative, I did not even bother checking out the calculation again because it is wrong. It is automatically wrong. ND1 cannot be negative because option delta has a direct relationship with call option value. So it can't be negative. So 43%. Now, there's a problem. The problem is that option delta is not constant. Option delta is not constant because there are variables within option delta itself that moves. Now, let's go and look at what makes up option delta. ND1, right? Which is D1, cumulative normal distribution of D1. Within D1, you have S, it changes. T, notoriously changes day by day. R can change, as we have said, right? So the fact that D1 is not static means ND1 is not static and means the delta of an option is not static. So if you are taught that ND1 at the beginning is 43%, hence anytime something moves by $1, then option value 2 will only move proportionately by 43%. That's only valid for that day. The moment you get to the next day, option delta has what? Changed. Because option delta itself is changing, it too is another risk. Delta itself is another what? Risk. I hope you guys are putting down some small notes as I'm talking. Okay, so delta itself is another risk. That is why Mr. Gamma was now introduced. So an option gamma measures the sensitivity of option value, not to the underlying price, but to changes in delta itself. Because I told you that delta itself is not what? Static. Okay, so gamma is effectively a second degree measure. Delta is a first degree measure. Gamma is a second degree measure. Any question on those two things that I've explained? Any question? No question. Okay. Next. Theta. Theta stands for the time to maturity. I have told you that it is the most notorious factor. It changes by the day, right? So we need to know T is here. T is also in the call option formula itself. We need to know to what extent does changes in T affect the value of a call option? That is what theta tells us. So theta is a risk factor that helps to assess the sensitivity of option values to changes in what? Time to the maturity of an option. If you go online, you can see an option calculator. Put parameters in that option calculator, it will give you the value of the call option. Most of those option calculators would ask for time to maturity in days rather than years. Is in the exam you normally do years. In real life is days. The moment you change the days, maybe you initially put 100 days. The moment you change the days to 99, you will see what will happen to the value of the option. It will change. Can somebody remind us? Is there a direct or indirect inverse relationship between T and value of a call option? Remind us. What's the nature of the relationship?
Hello, Shay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think that the value of the option increases as we get closer to the time of expiry, but I can't explain why.
Emmanuel, say what you said again. You think what?
Yeah, I said I think the value of the option increases as we get closer to the time of maturity. But I
Okay.
can't defend it.
Tolu, do you agree with him?
No, I don't agree with him. The
What's
value
your
of the option reduces. The value of the option reduces as we approach maturity.
Fantastic. That is the answer. So, Emmanuel, I think that's the mistake you made. Now, Tolu, beyond that, can you explain why?
Sorry, I think
Because
it gives the option more time to be in the money.
Fantastically fantastic. That is the answer. If you have two options, similar in all respect, except for the time to maturity, the one that has a longer time to maturity will have a higher call value if you hold all other factors constant, okay? And the reason is because that option has more time to become in the money that is favorable. Now, Emmanuel, you may say, but that also gives it more time to also become out of the money. Then I will now answer you by saying, if an option is out of the money, you don't lose anything other than the premium that you have paid. But you can walk away. But if an option is in the money, then you gain. So it's always positive. That benefit of time is always positive. Because even if the option ends up being out of the money, you don't pay. Option is one-sided. And that's why you pay the premium. Okay? So, Emmanuel, can you explain it now? Are you fine?
I'm getting there.
That is a disclaimer of opinion. Anyway, you can always go back to the videos in the class where we taught option pricing for details. Vega or Vega or Vega, whichever one you want. Bottom line, know what it is. And options Vega is talking about the volatility of the option. Again, we have agreed in this class that volatility can change. Volatility can change. The volatility that the market witnessed in March 2020 is potentially disastrous, possibly worse than the economic crisis of 2007 within that short period of 2020, because everything came to a standstill. That volatility of that time is not the same as the volatility we're experiencing now in the market. So volatility changes. So to assume that the volatility of previous years can be an estimate of future years' volatility, or to just estimate something out of the bracket, is a risk because it changes. Now, because it changes, the value of our option 2 will change. Vega is a risk factor that assesses the sensitivity of an option's value to changes in the volatility of the underlying item's cash flows. That is, that is, to what extent will C change if S should change? That's what we are talking about, Vega. There are people whose career is to trade in options. The way you wake up, brush your teeth, do everything, and go to the office, they too, they wake up, carry their laptop, start trading options. Every option position they take, whether long or short, they have to measure all these risk factors to ensure that if they are trading on behalf of clients or trading on behalf of their organization, they don't take more than they don't take excessive risks. So they measure all these risk factors, and once they're about reaching limits, they take positions to ensure that they are brought within limits. Okay? So that is Vega. Now, to the question that they asked us in the class. These other ones, I just had to explain it because they could have asked you any of those other variables. Please, again, you will notice that there's a question I've been asking you guys that is not here. I hope you are documenting it somewhere, the relationship that exists. So as you've told me that there's a direct relationship for delta, there's also a direct relationship for gamma. For theta, there's also a direct relationship. Okay. For vega, what is the relationship? Is it direct or inverse? The ladies are unusually quiet today. I don't know why.
Inverse.
Inverse. What do you mean by inverse?
As the value of the standard deviation declines, the value of the call is likely to rise.
Okay. Motolani, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay. Bridget, do you agree with that?
I'm not very sure about that.
Okay. Put it down as your learning point before Monday. Tolu, do you agree with that?
I beg to differ. I think the more the volatility in the cash flows of the underlying item, the more the value of the option, both call and put.
Fantastic. That is the answer. It is not a gambling game. You have to understand the logic and why it happens. So, as Tolu has said, it is a direct relationship for both call and put. And this may be telling me, that's why, in fact, when I saw all the questions that I could potentially pick, I noticed that most of them have similarities with one thing or the other that we've solved before. But I noticed that we've not done anything on risk sensitivities, and that's why I brought it to class. And I'm seeing some indications that we have forgotten some of these relationships. So I advise you that class on option pricing, the video is a 2-hour video. Go to it and recap so that you are on top of all those things. In that video, I explained that similar to time to maturity, the higher the volatility an option has. See, volatility is, can I write? Okay, I think I should be able, this is what volatility, this is what volatility means. Volatility is to what extent does something go up and down? That's volatility. Now, let's say this is your exercise price. That straight line as your exercise price, yeah? Compare this volatility of black with the volatility of red that I have now. Which one is more volatile, the red or the black? The red, right? Don't let me waste your time, the red. Now, anything above this exercise price, E, is favorable. So you exercise, right? Anything below is unfavorable. You walk away. An underlying item that is not volatile compared to an underlying item that is volatile has a less chance of being exercised. Now, what you may normally now ask is, but Sheyi, as it's going above the line, it's also coming below the line. What if at maturity it is below the line? Then I tell you, just as I told you for time to maturity, that if it is below the line that is unfavorable, you lose nothing. This is an option. This is not a forward contract of futures. In an option contract, you have the right to walk away and not pay anything to the counterparty again. So you lose nothing. But if it is above the line, then you gain, you make money. So if you are now dealing with an underlying item that remains consistent, almost a flat line, or moves but very slowly, it is not as good as one that moves up and down, up and down. Option traders love volatility because the more the volatility, the higher the value of that option will be going up. I think I've tried. Rho, as you know, the only last variable we have is risk-free rate. It's a risk factor that helps to assess the sensitivity of option value to changes in risk-free rates. Remember, what the question asked us is explain what is meant by options rho and discuss how the impact of changes in interest rate on the appraisal of the investment. So R has an inverse relationship with the value of a call option because it is a discount rate. Watch it. Watch. R discounts, this R discounts PE. So it means the higher your R, what happens to the present value, the lower it is. And the lower the present value, the higher the value of a call option. Okay, so that's direct. I don't know whether I said indirect, okay? So, but that's the relationship I've explained. The higher the R, risk-free rate, the lower your present value of PE, because it's discounting, yeah? And then the higher the call value. So it has a direct relationship with call. Okay, I think that's what I want to say. While it has an inverse relationship with what? Put option. Because if this was a put, you will reverse it, right? Or put is here, down here. So look at it. What happens here? If R goes up, PE comes down. And if PE comes down, put comes down. Okay, as shown in this formula. So there's an inverse relationship between R and the value of a put option, but there's a direct relationship between R and the value of a call option. In this project, what we are dealing with is a call option, okay? So that's why you have it here. The higher the risk-free rate, the higher the value of a call option because risk-free rate discounts the exercise price. Now, rho is typically not a major risk factor monitored because rates are typically constant over the short term. However, when dealing with long-term projects, rates may change over time. And as such, the need to monitor its impact on option values increases. So in most economies of the world, prior to the inflation we are dealing with now, most government rates have remained consistent. Within a 1 year period, rates often remain the same, but when you are now dealing longer term, rates may now become volatile. And even in some specific years, you may have rates that may now become even volatile. For example, we know now that US, for example, have changed its rates. Okay, and they've also announced that in another quarter from now, another rate change is going to happen, you know, and the market is already getting ready for that. So that's the thing. But generally speaking, in the short term, to ensure consistency as well and reduce volatility, government rates usually remains consistent. But once it's longer term, like this long-term project, it becomes a risk factor that you need to monitor. Okay, so that's the key thing you need to state there for full 5 marks. Anyway, if there's no question, I move on. Any question?
Sorry, how long does it, what do you consider as long term in case of this to monitor risk? Like what period of time would that for it?
Yeah, I mean that's relative. Long term will probably be 3, 5 years. Then, to be honest, long term 5 years and above. But then you can still look at 3 years, 4, 5 years, 7 years, and stuff. Yeah. And some people can also say long term if it is more than 1 year. Because when you say interest rates or when you say rates, typically it's for short term, overnight, 90 days, 6 months, 1 year. Okay. But so long term can vary. That's really what I'm depending on. But in this case, you can work with the years I gave you. Any other question? No. Finally, discuss the possibility of the NASWAN government obtaining funding for further land reclamation from the World Bank, referring specifically to the IDA. Okay, so we all know the World Bank, but we don't know whether we know what the World Bank is for. The World Bank provides loan, often direct to government, on a commercial basis for capital projects. It is commercial. They are not Father Christmas, and they will seek to collect their money back. The problem, however, is that not all governments can meet their conditions. And so some governments may be so poor, so less structured that they may not be able to meet World Bank conditions. And that's why there's a arm of World Bank responsible for dealing with such less developed economies. But let's read what we have. Loans are generally for a long-term period, which may suit the NASWAN government. However, the terms of the loan may be onerous, not just the finance cost, but other conditions imposed on the scope of the project. Sometimes they may even say, before we can give you this money, you need to do some fiscal restructuring. Fiscal, FISCL. Okay, you need to cut down on your budget deficit. You need to cut down on your revenue or recurring expenditure and spend more on capital expenses. They may put some conditions. Okay. Given the circumstances of the investment, NASWA may be able to obtain assistance from the IDA, which is part of the World Bank. This provides loans on a more generous terms to the poorest countries and the poorest of the poorest countries. Okay? However, it is designed for countries with very high credit risk, meaning default risk is high, which could struggle to obtain funding by other means. And NASWAN may not be eligible for such IDA. If, for example, NASWAN is an economy that is doing well. I'm not sure if there are indications in this scenario. They said he knows that NASWAN government is keen to encourage and develop it. Yeah, I'm not sure if there are indications in this scenario about the viability of the economy. Okay. Because of the cost of the, okay, right. So it depends. So if last one is, it meets the definition of poor according to IDA benchmark, then it may be able to qualify for that. If not, then it would have to consider all bank loan and be ready to meet some conditions, probably high finance cost, not too high, but something to be paid, and a couple of other conditions attached to it. All right, so that is that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do the third question, which is agrochem. Agrochem. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to I can probably send the solution to you guys, okay? Or if during our mock debrief, I don't know whether the timetable is out. I think the timetable is out. When is the mock debrief happening for AFM? You don't know?
So I don't know.
Ah, okay. All right. So, yeah, there's a timetable for it. I'm surprised they've not dropped it on the groups. Why? Admin, answer me. Oh. Lucky, are you there? Oh, they've not. Okay, anyway, they will drop it on the groups and you will see it. You will see the dates for AFA. Hey, sorry, quick question. The stuff you guys did with Olumide, did you finish the 3 questions in those 2 days?
Yes, we did, sir.
I need to go and learn from Olumide the magic he performs to finish 3 questions in those. Maybe you guys finish by 11 p.m. the second day. I don't know, but that's a good one. So that means you have space.
I think what.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I just want to tell you the strategy. I mean, he did more, considerably more on the calculations and the. I mean, the second, this for the 2 other questions were. He just guided us through the narrative, so I guess that's where it saves time.
Oh, okay. Anyway, what may have learned over time is that narrative, students often tend to shy away from it, and I don't like shying away from it. I don't like rushing it, because by the time you calculate all the marks, yeah, you will see that about 50% of your marks are related to the narrative part. And so it's important that you have that culture and attitude of gathering your points and thoughts together. Anyway, that aside, so we can use the mock debrief then to solve our agrochem, okay? If there is no other question for Shay, thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. I wish you all the best with your exams. Make sure that you do your self-assessed mock as we have agreed. And then, sort out the remaining questions on our list of 9 diets that we are tracking. I was counting yesterday. We've solved several questions in this class, even during this revision. And we even solved some questions that were not on that list. For example, Folion is not on that list. Ivy League 3, the international investment appraisal question we did was not on that list. Then the interest rate risk management question we did was not on that list. So That gives you some additional questions you can solve. Please go through those things, do your mock. And if you have any questions, drop it on the group. Yeah, and as Emmanuel said, don't read too much into the exam day. Sleep early enough. Make sure your brain is cool enough. And I also hope there will be no issues with laptop or computer and all those things. It's the last headache you want to start dealing with in the exam hall. And obviously pray as well. And yes, we are here to support if you need any help. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bless you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.